We lead this bulletin with a story now. Chief Justice Raymond Zondo has handed over part 4 of the State Capture Inquiry's report to President Cyril Ramaphosa. The topics covered in this latest installment include the capture of Eskom, the attempted capture of the National Treasury, Gupta bank accounts, and the Free State Asbestos and housing scandals. The report also reveals that President Jacob Zuma advanced the Gupta's business interests. Well, man who's been beginning to study it and was there when it was being handed over is Aviwe Mtila, our senior reporter. He's back with me in the studio here on Today. Aviwe, thank you very much. Good afternoon. Thanks for being here. Okay. It's another big report. It's very voluminous. This is part 4, but it's got different sections. It covers around 6 different areas. The first 2, just talk to us through about the main ones first. The first 2, what are they?
Well, but then in summary, it's thousands of paragraphs that basically detail the rot that we have come to know now from government as well as the private sector in what we now know as state capture. The first 2 volumes focus on the attempt to capture the National Treasury as well as the dealings between EOH, the company, as well as the city of Johannesburg. In volume 2, it looks at the Free State Asbestos project as well as the Free State 1 billion rand housing project. At the first volume, the Chief Justice Raymond Zondo cited how it was almost a miracle how the National Treasury was saved from state capture at the hands of the Gupta and the involvement of the former President Jacob Zuma. He goes on to say that he shudders to think what would have happened if Zuma wasn't forced to recall the then finance minister, the 4-day finance minister, Des van Rooyen, as well as his advisory team in National Treasury, going on to shudder what would happen to our finances. And of course, it notes the involvements of the Gupta and how Zuma basically failed to capture Treasury, and citing that Nhlanhla Nene, former minister Nhlanhla Nene, as well as former Minister Pravin Gordhan, must be given credit in the resistance that they had. When it moves on then to EOH and the dealings with the city of Johannesburg, it cites the now Deputy State Security Minister Zizi Kodwa and how Cyril Ramaphosa in fact making recommendations that the President must consider the role played by the Deputy State Security Minister, given that he is beholden to EOH's Yahan McKay, yes. And in fact, he owes him some 1.7 million rand. So there are questions as to his role as Deputy State Security Minister and his involvement with EOH. Then it goes on to the Free State, where it looks at the asbestos debacle, where we do understand 255 million rand was spent. The questions around the 2 companies involved there, which are Blackhead Consulting as well as Diamond Hill Trading, and how they received those tenders, given that they falsified their qualifications and their capacity in doing business there. And then close off with Mosebenzi Zwane and his involvement when we looked at the Human Settlements Department. In fact, there was the financial results, 2010-2011 financial results, showing that some 500 million rand was spent on the ground while there was hardly any houses built there. Saying
in the
that
Free State.
In the Free State. Yes. He's a failed MEC in summing up volume 1 and 2 of the state capture report.
That's quite a big chunk. Okay, and then we then get to the other stuff that is also in the report. I understand as well that, I mean, there's 2 parts or 2 volumes, as they say, of this part 4 that go back to Eskom.
Yes, and that's volume 3 and volume 4. Basically, it just details the rot that we now have come to know from Eskom, and basically says that the former President Jacob Zuma was a crucial player in the Gupta plot to capture Eskom. In fact, it goes on to say that the Guptas and the former president orchestrated the suspension of the 4 senior executives there. I remember that was in March 2012, I beg your pardon, 2015, on the 12th of March. It says there was a meeting that happened in Durban where the former chair of SAA, Dudu Mieni, was there. Present also the chairperson of the board of Eskom, Zola Tsotsi, was present. Zuma was also present in the meeting, but it's just the role that still in question at the moment. But do understand that meeting happened just 4 days before the 4 executives that were then suspended, put in place, replaced by people that were seen then to advance the interests of the Guptas and the former president. Another question that was risen there was just around, once again, Mosebenzi Zwane and how he became then the Minerals Resources Minister, given that he was a failed MEC, basically. So the Chief Justice basically saying that it couldn't have been on merit and his achievements given that role. And even how the former then Mineral Resources Minister, Ramaphosa, was removed from his position because of the resistance that he had towards. Of course, it did not spare Machele Koko, Anoj Singh, as well as Brian Malife and their role that they did in just fast-tracking the gains of the Guptas in capturing Eskom.
Yeah, just before you came on air, I saw a tweet that's been going around with Matsela Koko saying that he and his lawyers are studying the report. I guess most of the people who are implicated or mentioned in one way or another in these cases of alleged state capture and corruption will be busy studying this voluminous report. As you were talking, I was thinking some of the names you were talking about, as you said, some of the cases we've known about and we followed the state capture inquiry, and there's always this issue about recommendations. And in the past 3 volumes, we saw recommendations for investigation and recommendations for prosecution. From what you've just gleaned a little bit, I mean, what's being recommended, for example, around a person of Matsela Koko's stature, as an example? I mean, have you got to that point yet in the report?
Yes, of course, there are those recommendations in place. For example, Anoj Singh and Matsela Koko should be investigated for their roles in certain tenders and contracts that went to Gupta companies. Also recommendations when it comes to Mosebenzi Zwane, the former MEC of Human Settlements in the Free State, as well as the former head of Human Settlements in the Free State, just around their roles in allowing those contracts and the payments that went into the various companies while there was hardly any work done on the ground. Of course, it goes back to naming several people, as we've seen in the previous reports, and how recommendations have been. And as you rightly put it, of course, we can expect some of them to take it to court, as some of the senior ANC politicians already have suggested that they will be taking this report to court.
Yeah, and the final one is set now for June.
I understand on the 15th of June will be the 5th and the final report, and then the President from there will make his recommendations to Parliament, and of course hoping some sort of action to be taken.
Thank you very much, Aviwe Mtila, with the latest update regarding the release of Part 4 of the state capture report. The last final part expected around the 15th of June. Well, for now, there's going to be a lot of reaction. We'll also bring you some more analysis here, of course, on eNCA.